a little after I was doing all these paintings in black and white, I started to do other series where I manipulated the character and cropped him and distorted him, and more kinds of structural things started to become up front in my interest. But the basic idea of paintings driven by driven by the idea of a character that was the protagonist in the art was something that I think in large measure came from seeing Laurie's work with dummies and other things that I'd been looking at that had been a little bit outside of my interest before.
Well, I think you wanted to address gender. I remember you expressing the idea that you thought that it would be, there were a number of paintings that had these, when I talked about them chattering, these sort of chattering blonde women characters. And I think at a certain point you felt it would be interesting for...
Well, I lived through feminism just like all the ladies did,
Right.
And I didn't really see a lot of that as real subject matter, if not content, in the painting of most of my peer group. It didn't seem like something that was being examined in a really direct way, and I thought it might be important, or at least, not to make claims. I don't mean important in any, it might be important to me, is really all I mean. And that's what it felt like. You want to say anything about that?
No. I'll say something about this. There was a kind of odd series, that I'm just going back to examining. I made a movie in 2006, which really was a kind of closure on years and years of work. It was one of the biggest efforts that I've ever made. My executive producer, Jeannie Greenberg, Rowerton, is here. She made it with me, and it was like such a labor of love and so intensive, time-intensive, effort-intensive, financially overwhelming. And when the movie was done, I was sort of diminished. Everything I'd done up to that point was, it seemed like I couldn't go back to anything. So I thought, well, the only way to start again is to start with just a kind of rebirth, women in no time, in no place. I started, taking pictures of naked girls downloading free porn from the internet, and I started to try to build something up from a base again. And these pictures were called color pictures. I had a booth of them, I think at the 2007 Miami Basel Fair. And it was interesting to really, it was one of those periods of time where I was there, I installed the booth, people were coming by, people that knew my work, and I sensed that people were really confused and baffled by what I did, which was okay. It was interesting to feel that feeling of really, starting over. And so I started to embellish on the pictures. I started to cut things out. I started to paint on the naked girls. And I put this picture up because Tip happened to come into my studio, and he just absolutely fell for this picture. And I made him a print and gave it to him, either for our anniversary or his birthday. But I thought it was really interesting that, I think it's Basiotis in the picture.
It is William Basiotis.
Who happens to be an artist.
Which I don't think, Laurie, I don't think you knew that.
I had no idea who it was. And actually, Tip just recently wrote a really, what I thought was a terrific piece about Basiotis for Art Forum. So this was, way prior to this. But I thought it was really funny the way he fell in love with this picture that was this classic artist model scenario. Totally a little raunchy, totally sexist. And he just really loved it. And this is, as these color pictures were kind of growing to a point, leading me up to my most recent work. The slides are, the images are coming up.
Well, it was very meaningful to me, almost in the way that I felt like there was some sort of telepathy going on, because I had finally managed to get beyond paintings that were dominated by that male character and was working on a whole big group of things around the idea of painting trees, not real trees, but trees I imagined. And I think I saw it as a way to get back to something less like sort of charged in a topical subject matter kind of way, where I could think more structurally again about painting. And I don't know, I'm still not quite sure how to talk about that period of time, but that's an example of one of the paintings that I made at the time that I still, I like a lot. So, but other things were kind of percolating in my head, which Laurie had no real reason to know about. One of them was the idea of painting women, of really taking on the whole idea of the nude, which runs throughout Western art history and is the premise of a lot of painting of earlier painting that I love and have been very affected by. And I was having less and less able to see a reason why that shouldn't be an interesting thing to do. And I saw this photograph of Laurie's, and the fact that it was Basiotis, who's a kind of an odd artist that a lot of people don't think about now, who I have a particular interest in, and that Laurie had just kind of taken this picture from an old book or magazine based on what it looked like. She didn't even know that it was Basiotis. It seemed like there was some message there for me, reading the innards of goats or something. And so, I started doing these things. I mean, again, I can't show you the whole development. It doesn't matter for purposes of this conversation. But the last couple of years, I've been bringing my interest in painting trees and my interest in painting naked human females together. I don't paint real trees and I don't paint real females. It's all coming out of here. But it's what I'm in the middle of, and it's odd because it's this is all going together with Laurie finding her way into this whole new body of work that involves this doll that she can tell you about. But for the very first time, about 2 months ago, I was giving a lecture about my work in New York, and someone asked me why Laurie's work and my work were following in such closely related areas of subject matter. And it was absolutely the first time anyone has asked a question like that to either of us. And damned if I know, really. I mean, I think in a way it's kind of a red herring because we've come to things in such different ways. But in another way it can't be because it's so obviously connected.
Yeah, I think this is the point. I mean, the whole group of images and talking leading up to this is the point that I'm really excited about, because it's just gotten really weird that there is so much connection in the imagery, and I can't say that I saw it coming. I don't think you saw it coming. I was at the lecture where someone asked the question of what Tip had to say about the fact that our work was so closely visually tied right now. And my most recent body of work involves a Japanese love doll, a Japanese sex doll that I found in Japan in the summer of 2009. I spent most of the summer in 2009 in Japan, first having an exhibition, brought one of our daughters along, and then went back to screen my film, brought the other daughter along. So I felt, very much immersed in the culture there, as well as one can be, in a couple of months, and also that I was definitely going to find something there that was going to sort of break the malaise, the kind of doldrums that I'd been in after completing the movie. And when I found this life-size love doll, I just saw the possibilities opening up for me. And once I ordered the doll, I had the opportunity to decide everything about the doll down to the most minute detail: the color of the hair, the color of the eyes, the color of the skin, all kinds of other details that I will not share with you. But the idea that around the same time, Tip started making these paintings with this woman is emerging with this wild black hair. It's just, you know, it's something I'm currently trying to make sense out of.
But not all of the, I mean, Laurie chose this. This happens to be one of the pictures I'm really interested in of hers because the doll is in the water. And I have established for myself an area of interest that has to do with the subject of bathers, which is a somewhat traditional painting subject. So the juxtaposition of woman, water, and landscape, really that's just a way to, bathers is just a thing to call that. But I was very struck by those pictures Laurie made of the doll in the swimming pool because of precisely that. And I've found that this whole coming upon this new kind of place to be working for me is allowing a lot of very old interests of mine to reassert themselves, like interest in geometry and certain kinds of structure that I've always responded to in other painting and tried to have some sort of relationship to. Now I'm finding there's a kind of weird collapse of my different parts of my personality, different things I like to do into this group of paintings, which I have trouble talking about too much because I'm in the middle of it, and I don't have the benefit of the 20/20 hindsight that I alluded to earlier.
But I think this would be a great, I mean, I feel like we've said so much, and I think this would be a great time if there are questions or, I mean, I guess I'm saying we could stop talking.
No, I think we would like to answer questions if people have them.
How large is that painting?
It's about 7 feet tall, 5.5 feet wide, something like that.
What are your top 5 favorite museums?
I'm sorry?
Your 5 favorite museums?
5 favorite museums?
Yeah.
What a funny question. Gosh. I really like the Albright Knox in Buffalo. It's beautiful. We once saw a little museum in sort of an ethnographic museum in Greece that I thought was the most beautiful spot I ever saw.
Yeah, but I guess in the sense you mean, I don't know, like spending all of our adult life in New York, you get very familiar with museums in New York, like the Whitney and the Museum of Modern Art are both places I go all the time, and the Met. You know, I go there so frequently and have for so many years that they feel very familiar to me. But then, I mean, I've had very, I like to go to museums where I can look at paintings and have profound connections with them, like the Prado is a place like that. I like the Brera Museum in Milan because I'm interested in weird Northern Italian painting. I don't know, it's hard to me to think on the spot about that any more deeply. But.
Anyway, Jennifer has a question.
I have a question more directed toward Tip. Your work with the male character is so aggressive and angry, and I can see why Laurie would be upset, you know, disturbed when you would walk into a studio at that time. But this work, you know, this new body of work over the past couple of years, is you're in a whole different psychological place, it seems. And I just wanted to ask you if in fact you are, and what you might attribute that to.
Well, I don't know. I don't feel that, you know, but as I said, I don't, in the present tense, it's really hard for me to make connections to anything in my life. Like, I would tend to think that these paintings come more from a desire to work with color in a different way, blah, blah, blah. You know, I mean, I can say things, but...
Well, I think if I could interrupt, I think it's really significant that you're not painting in New York anymore.
Yeah, see, there's
I mean,
a
I
thing,
think
like,
that's a really huge...
I gave up my studio in New York a couple of years ago, and I've been working at a studio I have up in Connecticut, and it isn't so literal as like these things. I mean, actually, I was working on these things